This is Kilo Delta Zero Tango Yankee Uniform. Joe here in Loveland. I'm net control for this evening's TechNet, sponsored by the Northern Colorado Amateur Radio Club. Looks like she's 6 o'clock on the nose. We'll start the TechNet with taking check-ins. Anybody want to check in? Please call.
WA9FBO. Good evening, Joe.
KD0FQN, Kilo Delta Zero, Foxtrot, Quebec, November, Rick in Loveland.
I got two of you. Good evening, Bob. Good evening, Rick. Thanks so much. Anyone else?
This is KF0ODD, Paul from Berthoud.
Good evening, Paul. Thank you. Anyone else?
WA7EM, Whiskey Alpha 7, Echo Mike, Ed and Erie.
Good evening, Ed. Thank you. Anyone else?
This is Kilowatt Echo Zero, Mike Echo, Dick, Loveland.
YDN, Eric.
Hey there. Good evening, Dick. Good evening, Eric. Anyone else?
KD0YOP, Kilo Delta Zero, Yankee Oscar Papa, Scott's in Fort Collins.
Got you, Scott. Thank you. Anyone else?
This is Zero Lima Echo Echo, K0LEE, Lee in Greeley.
Good evening, Lee. Thanks for checking in. Anyone else?
K0HK, Dave in Fort Collins.
Good evening, Dave. Anyone else?
Yeah, W0LEI, Whiskey Zero Lima Echo India, Chad and Stout.
My good buddy Chad. Good evening, Chad. Anyone else?
Kilo Alpha 2 Alpha United Zulu, KA2AUZ in Milliken.
Got you in Milliken. Thanks so much. Anyone else?
KF0GQI, Kilo Foxtrot, Zero Golf Quebec, India, Doc in Pearson.
Good evening, Doc. Thanks for checking in. Anyone else?
K0MLG, Kilo Zero, Mike Lima Golf, Marty with some traffic.
Got you, Marty. Thanks so much. Anyone else?
This is Echo Zero, Yankee Alpha Victor, Eric in Windsor, no traffic.
Thank you, Eric. Anyone else?
This is AE0CF Alpha Echo Zero, Charlie Foxtrot, Fort Collins.
Got you, Ben, but somebody doubled with you. Come back. Making a repeater, but couldn't hear you. Might want to try again. Move or raise your power. Go ahead. And maybe a little bit later. Anybody else want to check in? Please call.
W5BB, Whiskey 5, Victor, Bill, Livermore.
Fort Collins.
Bill, I got you, but somebody else doubled with you. Come back.
That might have been me, K0AZA, Ron in Fort Collins.
I don't know why I couldn't understand. That's sorry, Ron. Thank you so much. Anyone else?
This is N0EMP, Greg in Fort Collins with Debbie, K0DBE.
Good evening, Greg. N0EMP and Debbie, K0DBE. Thank you. Anyone else?
N0BNK, Mobile.
N0BNK. Thank you so much. Anyone else?
This is Whiskey Bravo 5, Tango Echo X-Ray, WB5, TEX, Dale in Loveland, no traffic.
Good evening, Dale. Anyone else? Okay, well, we'll take check-ins as we go. Marty, you had something? Go ahead.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. This is a reminder that 6 meters will start being the magic band here starting this month. And we did this last year and had a few takers, and we learned how well 6 meters works even on low power. And if anybody is wanting to play 6 tonight, sounds like it'll be a pretty short net. We could meet at 18:30 here in a little while, and unless the net goes on, then we can move it back. But 18:30 and 50.135 on sideband, and if anybody wants to play 6 tonight, I'd be happy to turn radio on and give it a listen. These are MLG, back to net.
Well, don't take my net away from me, please. Just kidding. Yeah, I guess 6 meters. I've never really worked 6 meter. I worked everything else. I think I did once a long time ago, but yeah, give it a shot. It's worth it. Anybody got any questions, comments, whatever? Go ahead.
M0 NYY lead second, November Yankee Bart, Mobile Greeley.
Good evening, Bart. You're a little rough. How you doing tonight?
Yeah, I'm on the back side of the hill with a short antenna and my feet blocking it. I should get better right about now.
Not much, but it may get better.
I forgot about that. Yeah, I can't call in until I get away from the house a little ways, but I have a meeting at 6:30 tonight anyway. Otherwise, I would be on 6 meters as well, because it was amazing what we learned about that band.
Excuse me. So cool. So cool. Anybody else got anything tonight?
KE0ME.
Go ahead, Dick.
I've been playing around with some wire antennas, and I'm trying to find a reliable source that will let me figure out how much of a loading coil I need to shorten a antenna that I'm using basically inside the house. And it can be pretty much, I don't care about bandwidth that much, but rather than just cut and try everything, I'm trying to trying to squeeze a 40-meter in-fed half wave into about, say, 40 feet. So if that helps, any idea on how to calculate the coil microhenries that I need.
Hey, Greg, haven't you ever done that?
I have not, and especially if he's doing this indoors, he's going to be coupling into all the house wiring anyway, and that's going to affect things. So he really just needs to try trial and error. Throw some coils in there and put the nano VNA on them and see where they're at.
M0 NYY.
Go ahead, Bart.
If you have a nano VNA and you can cut the antenna short and do the Smith chart thing and find out what the reactance is, the inductive portion, that should tell you how far off it is in microhenries and I can't talk, sorry, but the Smith chart will tell you how much inductance is missing, and you should be able to make a coil approximating that in 0 NYY.
FQN comment.
Go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, KD0FQN. I believe it's Pacific 66 or something to that effect. Do like antenna calculators, stuff like that, but I believe it's Pacific 66. I'm not in front of a computer at the moment. They have quite a few different options for the different types of antennas, including building coils. So that's probably a good place to start.
K0HAK.
HAK, go ahead.
Yeah, it's actually 66 Pacific, and yeah, they do have quite a few calculators on there, and I've used them before for making vertical antennas for the Jeep shortened, and they tested out just fine and seem to perform. So yeah, definitely check that out.
All right. Well, that's great. And Greg, as you may know, all my antennas are in the attic, so what's going to couple is going to couple. And I have noticed, it really matters where I put it, how much coupling I get. But those are a couple of good places to start. And I don't have a mini nano VNA, but I do have an antenna analyzer, and it does have a Smith chart.
Any other further questions or comments on this? That was a good question. That really was. I have never tried that, setting up traps and things like that for that. I know that there has to be a formula. I mean, but that's interesting. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Go ahead. Well, I've got one. It's hard to believe after last week and this week that summer's coming. And I've been fooling around with some portable antennas, and I've kind of come up with my favorite. But what's your favorite portable antenna for either HF or UHF? What would be, which one would you like to put out there? Something that you can set up, somewhat simple, but, what one would you like best? Go ahead, Bart.
I love dipoles, center-fed dipoles. Takes a few pieces of hardware to get them up. I usually carry some PVC pipes, but you put up a dipole for 20 meters, you don't need a tuner, you don't need a bellend, it tunes the entire band. Same with 40. It's my favorite thing to do, and I typically use electric fence wire. I can get 350 feet for $10 or $12, $15, whatever, and cut all the pieces I want. Generally just fold the ends back to tune it, and they work fabulously with very little extraneous hardware. And once they're measured and folded to that length, and I just coil them up, and next time I put them out, guess what? You don't have to do anything. They just go and they work. And those are the ones I have played with the most and ruined my life.
Any other comments?
AZA.
Oh, go ahead, Ron.
So I can't speak to portable HF, but for portable VHF, UHF, I love the N9 Tax Labs roll-up Slim Jim. It's inexpensive. You can throw it in a go bag or a backpack, and extremely easy to deploy. You can tie some parachute rope on the end, tie a rock to the other end, and throw it over the branch of a tree, or put it up with a deep-sea fishing rod. You can get it up about 15 feet. And I've done a lot of testing with it on events, and it performs just outstandingly well. So for VHF, UHF, it's hard to beat.
Mike Echo?
Go ahead, Mike Echo.
I like to use a 17-foot telescoping antenna, just, a whip, and I've got a little mount sticking in the ground, and I've got a number of radials that I use power pole connectors. I can set it up very quickly, and I have two choices. I can either just leave it at 17 feet and use the antenna tuner to match, or I can just change bands. I can just adjust the height of the antenna. I've done that a lot, and it's pretty quick to set up, and doesn't take any additional support. That's the big advantage of it. You can, as long as you got a piece of flat ground, you can make it work.
Dick, before we move on this, have you tried the screen door for radials or the EMP cloth at all?
I have wanted to, but I haven't got around to it. That looks like a very intriguing arrangement because compared to my radials, I put out 8 random length radials. That does take a few minutes, whereas the ground cloth, boy, that seems quick. So, yeah, I think that's a great idea. I would love to try it. So I would encourage, if anybody gets to it before me, do it and report back what you find.
Yeah, okay. I have done that. Worked good out here, say out on the green grass when the ground is nice and wet. 20 meters into Russia with just a piece of screen, probably 6 foot by whatever, 3 foot. And I tried it up in the mountains a couple of times, and the ground wasn't very good. So it's to me, and I've seen guys do it on the pavement, so I don't know. But it does work, and you're right, it is easier than putting out radials. And anyway, yeah, give it a try. I put mine on, sandwiched it between some boards on the end so I could roll it up nice and keep it straight and from getting all smashed up. And anyway, I'm going to break this for a minute. Well, I got this. I'm just going to go ahead and say when I go out, I have one of them whip antennas as well, and the claw, I can mount it to T-post, and then used the barbed wire or whatever it is on there for the radials, and now it works really good too. And I carry a piece of wire around. I have an old ICOM 706 Mark II G with a AH4 tuner. I just hook it up on my Jeep. I have a little extension to put it up, you know, above your head. String it out somewhere, and that works very good too. So N0BNK back to net.
Anybody else tried that? Well, if you believe YouTube, which, you know, you have to, that Josh, I think he does, if I remember, Ham Radio 2.0 or Crash Course or something. He had one of those EMP cloths, and he put it down, and surprisingly enough, he had a 4x6, and then he had, I think it was like a 4x8, and the 4x6 actually did better than the 4x8 did, and he was working 40 meters, but he wasn't working anything else. He wasn't working multi-band. He was just working that. So I was really surprised at that. But anyway, does anybody else have any particular things that they like to use on portable? Go ahead.
Mike Echo.
Go ahead, Dick.
Well, in a time when I was in a great hurry and maybe it was a little too cold to mess around with anything, I've used Hustler mag mounts, and you know, with the band conditions halfway good, I did several photo activations just with a plain old Hustler mag mount on the roof.
Oh, that's interesting. I'd never tried a mag mount. Wow, that's an interesting idea. Anyone else have anything?
FQN.
Go ahead, Rick.
I'd say the first years, all I ever did was dipoles, just like Bart was saying. I've been messing around a little bit more with this 9-to-1 unun stuff due to the NVIS stuff we were doing around here. So that's been kind of my main one to play with. And today I was down at Lake Loveland with an inverted V, 55, 56 feet. I'd have to measure it again. 9-to-1 unun. I had a pole up about 25 feet, and the wire just stretched out between a tree and back to where my 9-to-1 unun was. I talked to England on 20 watts, heard Wales just fine, but there was too many other people that were going after him. My 20 watts wasn't winning on that one. DC, couple people, Boston, hearing people in Canada. I talked to one Mexican station, so that was just a couple hours sitting down at the park today. So that's been my latest, is just playing around with long wire. KD0FQN.
That's interesting. I've never tried that. I've never really tried that. I've kind of thought about it, but just haven't got around to it. Anybody else have anything that they'd like to try, or that they have tried?
Mike Echo. I've probably tried just about everything.
Would you care to explain that, Dick?
Well, I was just going to add to the list of antennas. I've made a number of ununs, 4-to-1s, 9-to-1s, 49-to-1s, 64-to-1s. I don't say they're great, but they do seem to work. And I've had pretty good luck with the 49-to-1 and just putting up about 65, 66 feet of wire. I think I was at Boyd Lake. I did that activation, and you know, that works on 40, 20, 15 very easily. And you know, the only thing is you got to have some support to set it up. And so far, the park rangers haven't said anything about using bungee cords to tie a pole temporarily to the side of one of those picnic shelters, and so that works also. Yeah, that has worked. I don't think I've done the 9-to-1, but the 49-to-1 worked pretty good for me.
Well, now that you bring that up, ununs and balance, how do you know what you need?
Rephrase the question. My brain's not working.
okay, you build an antenna, you got it all measured out and this and that. It's sitting there. How do you know you need a 4-to-1 balun, a 1-to-1 balun, or a 9-to-1 balun?
Okay, I'll kind of jump on this one. The 1-to-1 would be for a dipole. Well, that'd be a balun because it's balanced, unbalanced. The un would be for like an in-fed half wave. And for that, you'd use a 49-to-1 because the end impedance is very high. The 9-to-1 is more for a random length wire, and then there's several charts on the internet about what are good random length wires, so they're not totally random, lengths you want to stay away from. And from what I've read, the 4-to-1s are used more for matching like to ladder line, which is somewhere between 250 and 400 ohms impedance. So I think LDG had a pretty good article on their website about how to use which product where.
Any other comments?
MLB.
That was you, Marty?
Yeah. Well, that didn't really explain why. That just explained the application. And I wish I had the answer, but I don't. But I will say, hold on, get to a different radio. I am recently put up a in-fed half wave, 130 foot with a 49-to-1. No tuner needed. And yeah, it would take a little extra room if you're, say, at Boyd or somewhere. This is configured as an inverted V, and I am so happy with this thing. It's amazing how well it works. The apex is about 30 feet. The model I have will take 2,000 watts. I like it so well, I'm going to order another one. It's from myantenna.com. Matter of fact, No Bunk ordered one and is using it. But you wouldn't need a tuner, and what I like about an in-fed over a center fed, you got to carry all this coax with you now to have center fed, and with in-fed, you don't. You can configure it however you want. If you want to have a horizontal wire, fine. Because, you know, if you don't have a way to get the apex to the center of the wire up there, it's just such a easy no-brainer, and not as much coax needed, lightweight, and I will be ordering one for camping myself. Okay, is there MLG?
Any other comments?
Comment. Kilo Foxtrot 0 Quebec Golf Tango.
Comment.
Yeah, just checking into the net.
You're not quite you're making a repeater, but we can't hear you. So go ahead and maybe kick up a power or whatever you need to do there. You better come back again. We missed you that time.
Yeah, I'm on the little HT, probably on the wrong side of the house. Yeah, I was just saying I've got a 4-to-1 unun that I run on a 17-foot vertical wire, and then about a 9-foot radial, and that works really good for doing soda activations, and it's easy to pack and works well. Over.
We copied it that time. Yeah, that's good to know. Any other interesting things you're done?
My normal go-to here at the house is just the good old 66-foot end-fed half wave, or sometimes I'll experiment with random wires also with the 9-to-1. Yeah, most of our wire antennas though. Over.
Oh, okay. Copy that. Yeah. You know, the thing of it is, I have never built. Well, I can't say that. We did build a wire antenna a long time ago, but I haven't built one since. Oh shoot! I bet it's been 15 years or so. I'll do that maybe. Anybody else have any comments, questions?
I'm curious if anybody's actually tried to put up any loop antennas, you know, say for field day or whatnot. All I carry is 1 or even 2 poles. I'd love to get me a couple more. I'm a little cheap, so it takes me a while to get everything I need. But I've never actually used a loop antenna, and I think a 4-to-1 balun, not an unun, is required for that one. But again, like I say, I've never messed with that end of it. And people have bragged about the loop antennas they got. I know Radio Dan's got a huge loop antenna out at his place. I was just curious if anybody else has any input on that one. Over.
What do you say? Anybody help Rick there? I've never fooled with him. No, good idea, though. I think somebody doubled with Rick. Come back.
KE0ME.
Oh, go ahead, Dick.
Just to jump back to the ununs and toroids and everything else, there is an overabundance, I'll say, of information on the internet about the right way, the wrong way, the best way to make these things. There's a couple, and I know one website to look at, and I can't remember the other fellow's call sign right now, but he actually tested the efficiency of various coils and ways of winding them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the one I remember is called Evil Layer Electronics, EVIL and LAIR, like a wolf slayer, Evil Layer Electronics. And he never uses his call sign, so I don't know what his real name is. But anyway, he has a lot of interesting information, and just food for thought. Buy some toroids; they're cheap. Start winding and see what you can do.
Absolutely true. That's absolutely true. Any other comments, questions? I've been saving my favorite for last. It's not the best, but it is the last, unless someone else has something. I guess I got, I knew Darren really well, and I worked with him on a lot of different projects and stuff, and he kind of got me stuck on ham sticks, I have to admit that. So, and I was very poor until I actually ended up with an old MFJ analyzer, and then, I've got a rig expert and all that, but this was a really cheap thing, and it showed me how to tune an antenna. So I got the double dipole, set them up horizontally, and I tuned those things up. And then I decided I'll let this drop for a minute. So then he went out and he bought himself a octopus. If you're not familiar with it, it'll handle 4 different horizontal dipoles done with ham sticks. And it's about $350. In fact, you could buy them now. They're $399, but you can't buy the center piece. So if you got the ham sticks, you're stuck. Okay, so you got to buy the whole thing with the ham sticks and all. Well, I looked on everywhere in the world, and because MFJ's out of business and they don't make that anymore. Chameleon, who's not out of business, makes one called a Spider, and you can't buy them either. So I screwed around and found on YouTube where the guy had built one, and I followed his thing to the letter, and I built one for less than $50, I think. And I set that thing up today, and you would not believe how good that thing is. Let me let this drop. I set it up with a G90, a Zygo G90 in the backyard, and again, it was just me. And I've got a random bunch of ham sticks. I got an 80, a 40, a 20, and a 17. And I listened a little bit. I could get anything I wanted on 20. 17 was kind of there. 40 was dead, of course, and 80 I didn't even try. I didn't even bolt it on. But I was really kind of surprised how well that thing worked. And of course, I've got a really good tripod that goes up 20 feet. So I was very, very happy with that. It just used the tuner on the Zygo, and everything that I tested out, I set up just a double unit to set it up to actually tune the dipoles before I put them on this thing. And the worst case I had was 2-to-1. Everything else was below at least 1.4. But the 180 meter, I just could not get that below 1.9. That was all I could get. So I was happy with it. So that's what I'm going to be using out there. Any other comments, questions?
WA9FBO.
Oh, go ahead, Bob.
Well, we've been talking a lot about many different things here. Let me just toss in something. A couple of months ago, I wrote a column for the newsletter talking about efficiency, radiation resistance in particular. And it turns out that a full-size dipole is the most efficient. Now, just because it's the most efficient doesn't make it handy or convenient. And of course, you mentioned at the start that you were talking about POTA, and so now we get into all sorts of other things, like not having to put up a separate dipole for each band. If you want to run multiple bands on one antenna, you can do an end-fed and so on. But anytime you get away from a center-fed dipole, full size, you're going to have reactance to tune it. And whether it's L or C, that means you're going to have slight losses, which makes the antenna slightly less efficient. So, at the risk of continuing on for a long time, I'll just say that if you want the most efficient antenna, up in the high 90%, that would be a full-size dipole that's insulated. And if you don't want to do that, then all these other antennas are going to be almost as good as dipoles. How's that for an argument? Over.
So you're if not a half-wave antenna, right?
We're talking a half-wave dipole fed in the center, cut to frequency. That would be the most efficient. And at that point, you don't need any matching equipment. However, I use a balun on my dipoles here, one for each band, because it keeps my coax from radiating.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and I know your system. Yeah, and it seems to work fine.
All my antennas are full size and they work very well, but I am not loading up a backpack and hiking somewhere with them.
Mike Echo.
Go ahead, Dick.
Okay, on the last comment, it said something about a full-size dipole insulated, and I wasn't sure what you meant by that. Could you clarify that, please?
Insulation controls the length of the dipole. If you have an insulated wire, the antenna will be a different length than if it's not an insulated wire. Go look up at the Tri-Bander a couple of months ago. There's an article I wrote that discusses that.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, I understand when you're rolling up coax and wire and you're going to haul the stuff weighing many pounds a long ways, you want it to be lightweight and all that, and that's where all these other antennas come in. As far as I'm concerned, they're compromises.
Well, they say there's compromises to any antennas, and I can understand why there would be.
There is a dipole antenna cut to length, quarter or half wavelength rather, in free space is going to look like 73 ohms. And we're going to feed it with 50 ohm coax, so right away we have a slight mismatch there. But if you feed it anywhere else other than the center, the impedance is going to go up from 73, and that is why you need all these transformers and things to match. And, well, anyway.
But then what kind of a balun or something would you need for an off-center fed dipole?
Well, there you go. At the center of a half-wave dipole, you're going to have the maximum current and the least voltage. As you get away from the center and go towards one end or the other, the voltage is going to increase and the current's going to go down. That means it's a different impedance. So at the center, the 73 ohms, you move a couple inches off of that, it's going to go up. You move some more inches off of that, it's going to go up some more. And finally, when you get to the end of the antenna, the voltage will be high, the current will be low, that's high impedance, and now you'll be at, 3,000-4,000 ohms, and that's why you use a 49-to-1 transformer, because you're now multiplying the coax times 49. If you move that feed point somewhere else other than the end, it's going to have a slightly lower impedance, but that will require a different transformer. So it's all in getting a match between the transmission line and the antenna. And, of course, things are different when you use ladder line, because now we're not talking 52 ohms, we're talking 300 or 450 or 600 ohms. So now the transformer changes a little bit. But it's all very much physics.
I guess that was my question earlier, is how do you know this? Is there a way to test for that?
I like antenna analyzers. They work very well for that sort of thing.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I guess it does test for that. Huh, that's interesting. Well, thanks so much for that information.
Oh, and
go ahead.
Somebody mentioned Dan's loop antenna. Horizontal loop antennas are very, very good antennas, but they have to be high. The closer you bring them to the ground, the more energy you're going to couple into the ground, and ground is lossy. And if you go back to that article, it has to do with loss resistance versus radiation resistance. That's the whole key behind this, the physics of this stuff. Dan has 4 60-foot poles And on the top of those 60-foot poles, he's constructed some 2x4s to raise the wire even higher up off the ground. And that's why his loops work so well.
That's super interesting. He's flat genius. Oh, well, of course, I don't have the room that he does, but or the intelligence that he does. Wow, that is so cool. Yeah, I've been out to his place. If you never have been out to his place, you might get a hold of him and ask him to come on out.
Got a very nice setup, WA9FBO.
Any other comments or questions about this? Go ahead. Well, we've had an interesting discussion tonight. I do appreciate everybody showing up and with what they're going to do. Remember, summer's coming. We are going to do, I think the next thing we're going to do other than our general classes, we're going to do our HF in the Park at the end of May. I think it's end of May, if I'm right. And we're still looking for people. Thanks, Dick, for joining us with this one, and a couple other people I forgot to send a note out to. I do appreciate that. Anybody that wants to join in, like I said, you're going to have to bring your own equipment, of course, and you're going to be showing and telling what you're going to be doing. It's going to be down here at, I say down here because it's close to me now. It's going to be down here at Centennial Park. I think that's what it's called. It's down off of 4th Street here, 1st Street, at the ballparks, if you're familiar with Loveland. It ought to be a good show. So, anybody else have any questions or any check-ins?
Mike Echo comment.
Alpha, this is Jim in Centennial, WK0A.
Okay, Jim, I got you logged in. Did you have a comment?
No comment, just checking into the net.
Thank you, Jim. Go ahead, Dick.
Yeah, just a question. I'm interested to know if anybody had participated in the CQ WPX contest this last weekend.
Well, I didn't know the name of it, but I made a bunch of contacts. What do you need to know? Kaiser MLG.
Oh yeah, I was in the contest. I just didn't know if anybody else was there because I picked up 2 new countries. Was the interesting thing about it. San Marino and Galapagos Island. And those are 2 that I've never worked before, so that was kind of interesting. And hopefully in another couple of months I'll have some cards or confirmation from them. So just didn't know if anybody else had some good luck like that also.
Well, I got San Marino. Thanks for the heads up from FQN. That is the oldest republic country in the world. That was a pretty cool one to get. Anyway, kind of off topic, but I did make some good contacts. I've talked to the Falkland Islands several times, just not as I am, so I can't really log it. But nothing out of the ordinary other than that one and Russia, which sometimes is hit or miss. Anyway, Kaiser MLG.
Yeah, I was going to comment the same thing Marty said as far as at San Marino, and yeah, I did not get that country. I could hear them great, I just couldn't break through the pile-up. But it's completely surrounded by Italy and is its own little country. It's basically the top of a hill, only 33,000 people for their population. KD0FQN with little tidbits.
Must be a pretty big hill.
Well, they all are long-legged on one side and short-legged on the other side.
Okay, whatever you say. Any other comments, questions, or check-ins, please call. Well, Mile High DX is starting up again. If you're interested, get a hold of me or James, and we'll sign you right up. Anyway, we're going to wrap this up. That lasted just about 50 minutes, and we had 27 check-ins. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us this evening. We'll be back again next Monday at 6 o'clock. I don't know who's going to do it. I think maybe Ron, maybe not. I don't know. But we have our Wednesday night net and a Thursday night area. So if nothing else, it's KZTYU clear and the repeaters open for channel use. Thanks so much, guys. Great net.
This presentation was brought to you by the Northern Colorado Amateur Radio Club. For more information, visit our website, ncarc.net. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.